Good afternoon, Your Excellencies. You may be seated. Your Excellency President William Ruto, tunakukaribisha sana Rwanda. As we say in Kinyarwanda, murakaza neza. Your Excellencies, we will proceed right away with the signing of agreements. The first 6 memoranda of understanding between the government of the Republic of Kenya and the government of the Republic of Rwanda will be signed by Kenya's Cabinet Secretary at the Ministry of Foreign and Diaspora Affairs, Dr. Alfred Mutua, and Rwanda's Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Dr. Vincent Biruta. The first agreement is on correctional services. The second agreement is on diplomatic training. The third agreement is on information and communications technology, ICT. The fourth agreement is on health. The fifth agreement is on youth. The sixth agreement is on cooperative development. Asanteni sana. May we have a handshake, please? Next, we invite Kenya's Cabinet Secretary in the Ministry of Education, Ezekiel Ombaki Machogo, to join Rwanda's Minister of Education, Dr. Valentine Uwamaria, in signing an agreement on education. Thank you very much. Next, we invite Kenya's Cabinet Secretary in the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock Development, Mithika Linturi, to join Rwanda's Minister of Agriculture, Dr. Ildefonse Musafiri, in signing an agreement on agriculture. Thank you very much. Let's have a handshake, please. And finally, the agreement on gender will be signed by Kenya's Cabinet Secretary in the Ministry of Public Service, Gender and Affirmative Action, Aisha Jumwa Katana, and Rwanda's Minister of Gender, Jeannette Bayisenge. Thank you very much. This marks the end of the signing ceremony. Your Excellencies, we welcome you to address members of the media before we proceed to take questions from them. President Kagame, may I invite you to deliver your remarks?
Excellency, President Dr. William Samuel Ruto, members of the media, honorable ministers, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I want to take this opportunity to once again welcome the President and his entire delegation to Rwanda. Over the years, Rwanda and Kenya have built strong relations. Today's visit underscores that friendship. The President and I had productive discussions. We've just witnessed the signing of agreements in key sectors such as ICT, health, education, youth, and agriculture. These new areas of cooperation will bring us even closer together. We are very happy that Rwanda is home to a large and vibrant Kenyan community. We are grateful for their contributions to our development. Private sector growth is a key priority for us in Rwanda and Kenya. Regional integration and trade is a big part of that equation. I hope we can leverage these shared interests to equip our youth with the skills and knowledge to innovate and compete. The people of Rwanda and Kenya are also united by a common vision for a more stable region. I commend Kenya's leadership in helping to resolve the crisis in Eastern Congo with other members of the East African community. To put our resources together is to own our development with less dependence on the rest of the world. Mr. President, my brother, once again, thank you for visiting our country. May I now invite you to give your remarks.
Good afternoon, everybody. First, let me take this opportunity to thank my dear brother, the President of Rwanda, President Paul Kagame, for his invitation for me to visit Rwanda and for being a gracious and generous host. My delegation and I, Your Excellency, have experienced wonderful hospitality of the people of Rwanda, and I want to appreciate on behalf of my delegation the warm reception extended to me and to members of my delegation. The President and I have engaged in very fruitful, extensive consultations and deliberations on matters that are important not just for our two countries, but for our region and for our good, to the people of Rwanda, and through you, Mr. President, to the people of Rwanda for the hospitality that has been extended to the big 10,000 strong plus Kenyan community in Rwanda. We don't take that for granted. We sincerely thank you for that great hospitality. Let me also appreciate the MOUs and the documents that have been signed between our officials in the many areas of health, of ICT, education, and all the other sectors that will consolidate the relationship between our two countries, present to us new momentum, and create new impetus for the growing of our relations and expanding of our engagement between our two countries and as also members of the East African community. Your Excellency, just as Rwanda is a gateway for us into the Great Lakes region, we are also aware that Mumbai, to benefit from the synergy created by our two economies. Let me also say, in our conversation, we have discussed the issues around how to enhance communication between our two countries. It is the case that both Kenya and Rwanda have already signed and ratified the One Area Network that will present to our people the opportunity for ease of communication that will make it that much more easy for business, for enterprise to thrive as people engage not just through travel, but through communication. And we are looking forward jointly as Kenya and Rwanda to the other members of the East African community joining us in building this network of communication that will make it easier for people, East Africans, to work together, trade together, do business together, and live together in one common area. Let me also state that I have extended my invitation to President Kagame to attend the mid-year coordination meeting of AU that will take place in Nairobi between the 13th and 16th of July this year. Again, an opportunity that will present us a chance to discuss the matters that affect our continent, the serious issues of climate change, the serious issues of what the pandemic and all the other challenges of the war that has brought upon us, and how we can navigate in a very delicate global situation, how we can navigate as a continent and as countries into the future. We're all aware of the challenges around our region, and again, let me commend President Kagame's and Rwanda's understanding of the issues in Eastern DRC and their contribution to EAC as we manage the situation in DRC and providing leadership and making sure that the people of DRC who have had challenges for many years can one more time have peace and they can concentrate on building their nation. Again, we appreciate the understanding and the contribution of Rwanda in the EAC framework for us to be able to move forward. Same thing in Ethiopia, same situation in Sudan, and same situation in South Sudan, that we need the invaluable contribution and support of Rwanda in helping us sort out our neighborhood. Mr. President, let me again, on my behalf and my behalf of my delegation, again affirm the cordial relations between our two countries and our shared desire to deepen and expand the bonds of friendship and unity between our two nations. I am looking forward to this visit and all the other stages of this visit, and I am confident that the people of Kenya and the people of Rwanda will be the richer out of this engagement. I thank you.
Asanteni waheshimiwa. If you allow me, we will now begin by taking brief questions from members of the press. If we can have the first question, Leila.
Your Excellencies, Hamjambo. My name is Leila Mohammed from NTV Kenya. You've spoken about signing of bilateral agreements in the areas of education, health, and the female and women agenda. Kindly clarify to the people of both nations a deeper understanding of what these agreements entail. For example, in education, we know that Kenya is undergoing a new CBC system. How does Rwanda engage with Kenya on such grounds? Thank you.
It is to both of us. Excellency may start.
The details of the relationship between our two countries, and especially in the context of the signing of the agreements, all the way from agreements on cooperatives and how we can share experience on how to consolidate the cooperative movement, how we will benefit from the experience in Rwanda and the shared experience in Kenya, how to build platforms using ICT, for example, on the evolution of credit management, like in the case of the Hustler Fund, which you are aware about, and how we can bring ICT into the middle of organizing our cooperative movement and also leveraging technology to access financing in the whole of that ecosystem. On matters education, we share a background, both as Kenya and Rwanda, and our reform of the education system that is underway in Kenya, that is now being spearheaded by the presidential party which I appointed, will share a lot of experience on many issues, including transition from primary school, junior secondary school into university, and especially the big challenge of financing university education that has serious challenges. We are going to share experience on how we can make education much more relevant in our two referral hospitals, the largest referral hospital in Rwanda and the largest referral hospital in Kenya. Again, for us to share experience in that space and also to share facilities where necessary. You may want to know, for example, that Kenya benefited from support from Rwanda when I called His Excellency, and he was gracious enough to give us their ICT platform for VAT management. And as a result of that platform that Rwanda shared with Kenya, we have seen improvement in our VAT collection. It's in that context that we are signing some of these MOUs so that it becomes much more easy for us to share experience, share resources, and even share technology for the better management of our economies and our countries.
Well, I just add to what the President has just well elaborated in terms of the MOUs under the JPC. It was just a framework. I think many of the things really speak for themselves. It's a framework that will help us identify which key areas of interest to both countries where we can cooperate and add value and continue. What the sectors mentioned are not the only ones. There are more that have been ongoing or more that will come where that cooperation is going to be very helpful. And it is about learning from each other, from learning from different experiences. And in fact, Mr. President, and I'm sure it is of interest to the audience, the many thousands of Kenyans who live here, we are happy that they are here. Many things they are doing for themselves. But in the end, what they are doing for themselves is also beneficial to the country, to the people of Rwanda. And in fact, for example, some of them are teachers, so where we have shortage of capacity. Some will be doctors, others work in the hospitality sector. So they have even helped fill the gaps that exist in our own systems. Because of where we have come from, we didn't have, in fact, and by the way, they have been here for a long time. They've been here significantly. Here, they started being here maybe in the year 2000, but even slightly before that. And at that time, we had no capacity in this country in all sorts of ways. And this is really what is being elaborated in these MOUs and the cooperation and the relationship we have between Rwanda and Kenya. So this is just a smaller part, in actual fact, of the big thing we have to do.
Thank you. Let's have a second question from Sophie.
My apologies, I'm not going to stand because I'll disturb the cameras
okay.
because
No
some
worries,
of them are live.
no worries.
My name is Sophie Mkwena from the South African Broadcasting Corporation, SABC. It's an opportunity that comes once, therefore I have just 3 questions to both the leaders. The issue of the conflict in the Great Lakes region in the DRC, it is of a concern not only to the 2 countries, but generally including South Africa. How can this matter be resolved? And then the second question is in relation to President Ruto, back at home, are we likely to see, I'm saying here in relation to your announcement on Sunday, if my memory serves me well, that you are willing to engage the opposition. And then finally, President Kagame, ahead of the commemoration of the genocide, is the international community doing enough to deal with issues of conflict around the world, learning from what transpired in Rwanda in 1994 when the world looked away? I remember former President Mbeki saying, your party even reached out to the ANC then before they became government, but unfortunately they were busy with elections. Are we doing enough as the global community to avoid this conflict, the war in Ukraine, Palestine, and all those flashpoints? Thank you so much.
That will be loaded. You want to go first? You wish?
Okay, let me say the following. On the matter of DRC, Eastern DRC, and the challenges of security in Eastern DRC, this is a collective concern of us as a region. The heads of state did take a decision that EAC must provide leadership in sorting out the challenges in Eastern DRC, especially DRC joined the EAC. The good news, the positive news, is that the last 1 month has seen a lot of positive development around the challenge of security in Eastern DRC. We now have, joining the Kenyan forces that have been there for the last almost 5-6 months, Burundi have now come in, Uganda have now come in, and forces also possibly from Angola have come to support the whole effort of stabilizing Eastern DRC, providing security for especially challenges of security that continue to lead to loss of life, gender-based violence, and many other issues around. Because of the buildup of forces from different countries, there has also been generally a movement even by the armed groups in Eastern DRC to respect the cessation of hostilities, to also abide by the cantonment areas. We've seen a lot of movement in that direction. So we are confident that with this greater understanding and coming together, and I want to thank the heads of state of EAC for providing leadership in this area, and we are working together to see to it that we stabilize Eastern DRC so that Congo can have peaceful elections and they can continue to enjoy their country. On the issues of Kenya, thank you very much for asking. We believe we are a democratic nation. In fact, possibly the largest democracy in our region. And we value, and we, thank you very much, Mr. President. I think he realized I was struggling. As I said, we are a democratic country. We went into elections in August last year. Highly competitive election, very peaceful election, the best acclaimed outcome ever, an election that dealt a big blow to ethnicity, that election was devoid of any ethnic propaganda or any ethnic persuasions. Kenyans voted, and the outcome of that election was acclaimed by all the people who went through that journey with us, including observers, both domestic and also foreign. Subsequently, somehow the opposition, after 5 months, decided to make a claim that they were told by a whistleblower that possibly the results were different. They haven't been good enough to tell us who the whistleblower is and how they arrived at a different set of results than one that were released by our Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. However, as I said on Sunday, in times like this, it is not a question of who is right and who is wrong. In times like this, you have to put your house in order. And as president, I owe it to the people of Kenya to provide leadership. And on Sunday, I did ask the opposition to reconsider the demonstrations that they had undertaken, because protests and demonstrations are provided for in our constitution, but the protests and demonstrations were acquiring an ugly, violent turn that was destroying property, putting a lot of lives into risk, causing a lot of unnecessary chaos, and it was time for them to reconsider those demonstrations. I did offer them that whatever issues that they had, there was democratic, constitutional, legal channels of raising those issues using the platform of Parliament in a bipartisan manner. And that is the offer I made to the opposition. You asked me a direct question whether there will be a handshake because of this situation. I want to tell you there will be no handshake. But there will be an engagement in Parliament on the issues that have been raised, Those that Parliament can resolve, they will be resolved. And when I say there will be no handshake, I know that there is a context, like we were being told here, please have a handshake. Unfortunately for us in Kenya, a handshake has a different connotation. And that is the one that I am talking about. The handshake that brings the opposition and government into some conundrum and a mongrel and an outfit that is undemocratic, unconstitutional, and illegal. We are a democracy. And in a democracy, it is underpinned by a system of checks and balances, where you have a government and an opposition. The history we have of the handshake is where there was a fusion of government and the opposition, and the results were very disastrous for Kenya. There wasn't any accountability. The whole system went rogue, and the people of Kenya do not want a situation where democracy is undermined. Democracy is, the system of checks and balances is undermined. Kenyans want a democracy where the system of checks and balances works. I am a great believer myself in a system where there are robust checks and balances, because that's the only way you can hold a government or an executive to account. And holding an executive or a government to account works for everybody. It works for the citizens, it works for the government because they are kept on their toes, and it works for the opposition as well, because then they become part of success of a country. So I hope I have answered your question. Thank you.
Good. Well, on my part, two quick comments. One is on Eastern DRC. I'll first of all confirm what the President has just said, that I think in the last few weeks we see some progress, much as there are still other issues to resolve, but progress is nonetheless there. We just need to do more and register more progress toward a solution. But the history of Western DRC is something we can't go into, or problems here sufficiently. It will take a long time, but problems have been there back and forth, and something related to what the President said also is maybe for many years people have concentrated on trying to apportion blame to all parties and who is right, who is wrong, and it has gone on forever. So that means there's something wrong with that approach to dealing with the issues. I think the best way to deal with such issues is study, understand, and deal with the root causes of any of that problem or any other problem anywhere. If you don't look at the root causes, then you tend to give a partial solution, and then problems come back every other time. So, and this is linked to what you also mentioned, referring to the international community and what they do, whether there are any lessons learned. I want to, first of all, assure you there is very little learning in our world, in the world we live in. And that's why you find crises happening everywhere after crisis. If we learned lessons and applied the lessons, I think we would have less problems. Like in our case, the Eastern Congo problem has been there, has been related to problems we had here in Rwanda in some way. Then other things are specific to Congo. So then there is a mixture of Rwandan problems, Congolese problems, and when they mix up and you don't approach it correctly, you tend to have a permanent situation like this. So that with the involvement of the East African community, the countries so far involved, I think putting heads together, the leaders of the East African community, and by the way, also because these are people near to the problem or linked to the problem, one or the other. It goes into what is so often talked about, African solutions. I think well applied, truly these would provide solutions because there is a direct stake into that, and people are close to the causes or to the problem itself. So I have hope that we can find a solution, and maybe the outside world, all we need to ask is to support what the African leaders are doing and countries are contributing to, instead of getting into the mix themselves with what they think should be the solutions. It's better to support the solutions or the proposed solutions by African leaders. So I think we have that problem is there. The processes are on to deal with the problem, but I think we give it time. The sooner we can really do things that we have to do, then we would have would find solutions also that people are waiting for. So it is here in Eastern Congo, that is, and then the global community that, given the whole world, as you said, maybe those who I'm talking about who try to help here tend to divert their attention to other parts of the world. Maybe the problems in Eastern Congo or around the region, the Great Lakes region, will take, we end up being secondary in a sense. The primary becomes the other one. But we have to be aware of that. We shouldn't be disheartened by that. We understand how the world works, so we've got to bear that in mind and do what we can do. So I think that's what the understanding is in the whole region.
Thank you, Your Excellencies. We will now take the last two questions, Sam and then Anangwe.
Who is Sam?
Why don't both of you go and that one, so that you had said two people.
Yes, Sam and Anangwe.
Maybe an additional one person. I can see they are struggling for the microphone. And
Good evening.
if we do that,
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Jamal Hashim from Azam TV. Tanzania. I would like to speak in Kiswahili language. I know, President, you understand Kiswahili. Jumuiya ya Afrika Mashariki ni jumuiya yenye kuleta matumaini kwa nchi wanachama na watu wake. Lakini katika siku za hivi karibuni tumeshuhudia wananchi katika jumuiya hizi wakizinyoshea kidole serikali zao kutokana na hali ngumu ya maisha. Mkiwa kama viongozi wakuu wa jumuiya wa nchi wanachama wa jumuiya hizi Afrika Mashariki, mnadhani mnaleta matumaini gani kwa wananchi ili kurejesha walau furaha kutokana na hali ngumu ya maisha ambayo wamekuwa wakinyoshia kidole serikali zetu za jumuiya?
Well, I think we can answer all of them. Let them ask all of them, then we answer one go.
Okay, maybe it's better that you actually. That's
Right. Thank you, Your Excellencies. My name is Samuel Senono from UBC TV in Uganda. Your Excellencies, you've highlighted that in the bilateral talks that you've had and the many that you will continue to have, you've talked about the issue of trade and cooperation between the EAC nations. And reports indicate that for us to attain seamless trade in the East African region, we need to liberalize the skies. And East Africa has a project of the open skies. So, Your Excellencies, I would like to know what is the status update of the EAC open skies? Thank you very much.
My name is Eugene Anangwe. I represent CNBC Africa here in Rwanda. President Ruto, recently you gave a bag of goodies, for lack of a better word, for US investors, including possible tax relief measures. And this has been received in different ways. There are those who are local traders and those from the region who probably see this as, something that they wish to see as well. How do you convince them that such measures are not discriminatory and that you also think about those local investors? To both of you, President Paul Kagame and President Ruto, we are experiencing tectonic geopolitical shifts. And we've also heard of Japan, moving or committing to buying Russian oil above price caps. Most of people are breaking away from traditional US currency. I would like to understand where Africa, where Rwanda, where Kenya is in terms of their capacity on this table. Are they there as meals, or are they there as vibrant players in these particular shifts? Are we able to see, like in US now, President Trump has called for demonstrations in the anticipation for visa rest? Are we going to see senators coming from Rwanda, from Kenya, going to call them to order, the way we've been seeing such situations happen? Thank you so much, and God bless.
I think that's it.
That's it.
Let me start maybe with my question specifically, which was linked with that. I think I don't want to take the risk of replying in Kiswahili and then I'm misunderstood. I may speak in English, but I understood the question. Leaders grapple with all kinds of problems. I'm referring to the first question you raised. And it goes on for a long time. Problems, old ones, new ones. The leaders are there to work with the people of any country to try and overcome these challenges that affect them. So the problems we have today in whatever country you want to talk about, and the challenges that leaders have to address are everywhere. You don't find a country without any problems. That is for sure. Different countries have different challenges, problems, but they also have different capacities to deal with those challenges. So on the first part about problems, say, in our region, in different countries, and people pointing fingers at leaders, and that is what to expect with the leadership, with the politics, and with the challenges the countries face all the time. Now, on the transition part, the person in the president of Rwanda is, again, another issue. I fully understand what you are talking about. It's an issue that has to be addressed sooner or later. So on one hand, I agree with you. That is a solution that has to be found, irrespective of what has been done and progress and so on and so forth. Well, including some areas of lack of progress. But maybe you heard my speech. Is it the other night? Is it last night? Or the night before the one of us? I had an opportunity to address this question directed to my party, which over the weekend we had many things to do, including we had a Congress that brought together over 2,000 cadres of the party I lead, which leads the country as well. Some of those things were discussed. And the one you put the question to myself, I had the opportunity to discuss it with my members of the party, that it is an inevitability that we have to find, first of all, grow leaders, and not for me to decide who is going to be the next leader after me. I think that also is not necessarily correct, but to create an environment, circumstances that will give rise to people who can lead, irrespective of whether I like them or not. Because I think you brought it up referring to democracy. You're talking about governance. You're talking about good governance. In good governance, I don't think you want everyone exiting to be the one to decide who comes after them. So let's put that aside. But the situation is being looked at, has been looked at, in fact, since 2010. We had this discussion within our party, within our country. But the circumstances also in Rwanda and the history and the challenges tend to dictate certain things that may not be very common with other situations. But even other situations have differences of things they have to deal with. They don't necessarily deal with, in one country, one thing, like another country does it, and so on and so forth. But while that problem is, especially in our case, is particularly a bit complicated and has created these, given rise to these questions, it's also not very difficult to understand. It's not something that is invented by anybody or that has to come from anybody else other than we ourselves having to ask this question. Because at the end of the day, we are the stakeholders, and we aren't doing it for anybody else or to please anybody else or to do that. It's to manage our own affairs and deal with our challenges the best way we can. But the point you made, I will say, is not the first time It's not the first time it has come up. Maybe it's not even going to be the last time. But life has to go on. So we have to live our lives and deal with these challenges. So I'm sure one day I may join journalism in my old age. So, and then we can talk about that past that involved me. I'm looking forward to that. So maybe, President, I let you go and we can keep.
Okay.
Yeah.
There was a question about the progress of the EAC Open Skies project.
Yes. This one is also another thing that is going to happen if we really talk about integration and mean it. We can only say it has delayed, but it will come. And we better bring it about the proper way. I mean, there are things that need to be done within the region, people to discuss how best to do it, when to start. Do we start all of us, so we can start 2, then 3, maybe start 4, and others join? And these are things that people discuss and find a solution. So open skies, I think, are essential. And in fact, most of them, of these issues, like the President earlier said, had something to say about one area, network of communication, which has applied between mainly between Kenya and Rwanda. It was meant for the whole of East Africa. But instead of waiting for all of us to do it at once and maybe never take off at all, we said those who are ready can move on and the others will follow, especially when they have seen the benefits. But this also relates to something else bigger, which is the African Continental Free Trade Agreement that was entered into, and such a vast area that Africa or African countries that are part of it would really benefit immensely from. Opening up the skies, integrating communication lines, and serve very well within that framework, something that is so precious to our continent. So I'm sure it will soon be coming. And I let the President handle of that if need be. I'll come
I think
in
she
again.
wants to say something.
No, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. So let me say the following. I heard you talk about why don't you look for a successor? I want to tell you that from our own experience in Kenya, trying to get a successor can be a very disastrous project. Because it may not be the person the people want. So I think that's an area that requires much more than identifying somebody and saying, telling the population this is the person. What President Kagame has done from where I sit is commendable. I think he has provided sufficient mentorship to enough people to be able to step forward and in a democratic manner do what they have to do as a nation. I am very confident that he has provided lessons to many other leaders, and it is up to those leaders to do what they have to do. Let me wacha nikujibu kwa Kiswahili jambo la gharama la maisha, gharama ya maisha. Wacha nijaribu Kiswahili. Sio sanifu sana kama ya kule Tanzania, lakini nitajaribu ya Kenya. Gharama ya maisha ni changamoto la kitaifa na ni changamoto la kimataifa pia. sio nchi zetu za bara la Afrika Mashariki peke yake ndio tuko na tatizo la gharama ya maisha kupanda. Ni tatizo la kimataifa, sehemu nyingi duniani, kwa sababu ya mambo mengi. Jambo la kwanza, tuko na matatizo yaliyotukumba ya pandemic ya COVID-19. Tukapata tena matatizo ya vita kule Ukraine na Russia. Tukapata tena na matatizo makubwa ya climate change. Kwa mfano Kenya mwaka uliopita, magala yetu tulikosa karibu magunia milioni 10, karibu magunia milioni 10 ya chakula hayakupatikana kwa sababu ya mvua ambayo haikutosha. Na ni lazima tufikirie mbinu kama serikali, ni vipi tutashughulikia tatizo hili tukiwa na changamoto za climate change, kukosekana kwa mvua, kuchelewa kwa mvua na mambo kama haya, na vile vile kukosekana kwa mbolea ambazo tunatumia, na ni vile tutashirikiana kuondoa kwa mfano yale matatizo tuko nayo ya mipaka, vizuizi katika mipaka yetu ambayo yanazuia chakula kutoka Rwanda kwenda Kenya, kutoka Tanzania kwenda Uganda, na changamoto kama hizo. Na ndio sababu tuwe na maelewano kama yale tumeelewana hapa Rwanda ya uhusiano kati ya mataifa zetu, ndio tuweze kusaidiana pale panapotokea changamoto kama ile ya matatizo ya njaa. Kawaida, kwa sababu sisi ni nchi za demokrasia, kuna watu ambao wanachukua changamoto kama hizo na kuzibadilisha zikawa ni mambo ya siasa. Kama nafikiri umekuwa ufuatilia huko Kenya, kuna watu siku hizi wanavaa kofia juu ya kichwa, wanavaa sufuria. Na nimejaribu kuwauliza, hii ni mbinu gani ya kuzalisha chakula? Ukiweka sufuria juu ya kichwa, sijui itasaidia kwa njia gani kuzalisha chakula na kuondoa njaa. Lakini ndio hali, vile wewe mwenyewe ulivyosema, ndio hali ya mambo. Again, to maybe speak to the issue raised about open skies, I think President Kagame has responded to you very well. It is not a matter of if, it is a matter of when we will have the reality of connecting our airlines, and possibly even having one regional airline that will connect our capitals, our nations, and to be able to provide easy movement of people, ideas, goods, services. That's really where we are heading, especially, as President said, in the context of Africa Continental Free Trade Area. That is where we are all going. The challenge we have in our region and in our continent is that of connectivity. We've made the first step to improve connectivity in communication. That's why we have one area network with Rwanda. It is our belief that the other East African countries will come along as a building block towards reaching even where we are thinking on how we can bring our space into one area, have a regional airline. I think there are already consultations between Kenya Airways and South African Airways. There is possibility of consultations with Uganda Airlines, and I'm sure further down the road with all the other airlines in our region, so that we can make the skies of our countries one area and be able to move our people and services faster and much more frequently. On the subject, my good friend said about, Mr. Anangwe, you said something about what?
Sure.
Okay, yes. Yeah, the incentive of U.S. investors. In any case, the incentive I announced last week are not just for American investors. And I said it very clearly when I announced those incentives. They are for business, whether they are Kenyan, whether they are from Rwanda, whether they are from East Africa, or they are from the US or indeed any other part of the globe. We are continuously raising the bar on investment in our region to be able to make sure that we attract investment into our region. It is the reality that our own taxes can take us so far. Foreign direct investment becomes another avenue of attracting resources so that we can grow opportunities, we can grow our economies, we can grow jobs for our young people. Apart from what we are doing nationally, using our own taxes, apart from what we can do with money that we can access from multilateral agencies, there is huge opportunity if we can also attract foreign direct investment. It is an avenue for growth of the economy, for growth of job opportunities, business opportunities, entrepreneurship, and it all works together. Not for the American firms, not for the European firms comes to invest in our region. It is the benefits we get with the jobs, with the investment opportunities, with the services, with goods that are manufactured in these areas. And for your information, many of the goods that will be produced by some of these investments are goods that will also earn us foreign exchange when they are exported to different destinations globally. So we have many companies in Kenya, for example, One Health Revital in Kilifi that exports to 28 countries in the world. And it is an investment from an American company combined with a Kenyan company and a collaboration with other entities. So these investments must be understood in that context. I know narratives are always created around these investments politically, but this is the background that I have shared with you.
Thank you, sir. I think we've come to the end of the program today. Asanteni sana kwa kuwa nasi leo hii, President William Ruto. We wish you and your delegation a beautiful stay in Rwanda. Thank you. May we stand and see off the presidents.